Thank you for joining me for another video. Last week we finished up with chapter 9 of the book of Genesis. So this week we're going to begin chapter 10, and if you got really excited when I told you the topic of today's video last week, then you're in luck, man, because here we go. It's so chapter 10, the majority of it anyway, is the Table of Nations, as it's commonly called. And you're going to find that, I think originally there was a Christian designation, but you're also going to find that in Jewish parlance as well, also in Jewish versions in English of the Tanakh. And there are a bunch of names, so what I'm going to try to do today is give you a general idea of where the people who bore those names originally settled. Okay, this is ancient times. This is obviously, it's not the same way today. However, you are going to see some things that are very similar to what they are today in the Torah, in terms of what they're called today. And there are differing opinions about where exactly they lived and everything, but you're going to notice a picture at the end of this. You're going to notice a generalized picture of where they lived. You're going to notice that even though there are differing opinions about where certain tribes or certain people, who I'm calling tribes, settled, as they're named in the Tanakh, they all just sort of spread out from there. You're going to notice that the geography, that's the right one, that the geography of it is really in the same area for the most part whenever we get into where everybody lived. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into chapter 10 of the book of Genesis. Today we're going to be reading just the first 5 verses, so you don't have to sit through a super long video today. I'm going to try to break these up, try to make them a little bit more informative rather than this is what we teach, because honestly, who looks at chapter 10 and really, teaches something, anything out of it, other than the incident with the Tower of Babel, which really comes in the next chapter, but its origins are here in the 10th chapter, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So, for today, we're going to open up in verse 1, chapter 10, verse 1, says, Wele toldot bene Noach, Shem, Ham, Weyofeth, Weyoldu, Lehem banim ahar hamabul. So it says that these are the here's that word again, toledoth, which means like histories or perhaps chronicles, but in this case it's used to mean the descendants, the where the children of Noah spread out to. So we're going to stick with descendants for translation purposes today. It says that these are the descendants of the sons of Noah, Shem and Ham and the Yafeth, and it says that sons were born to them after the flood, which is good. Just in case you thought that, maybe life ended with the flood. No. They had kids. It's okay. I know everybody alive, 4,000 or 5,000 years later, is very relieved to know that their ancestors did in fact have children. Verse 2, Bnei Yefeth, so the children of Yefeth, Japheth, Gomer, Umagog, Umadai, Yavan, Thuval, Umeshech, Tiras. So the sons of Japheth, of Yafeth, were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yawan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. and we're going to get into, I was about to start, but caught myself because you want it all at once, right? I was about to start telling you, about where these guys lived and everything now, but I'll wait until after I'm done reading. Uvnei Gomer, the children of Gomer were Ashkenaz, were Rifath, with Togarma. So the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rifath, and Togarma. Uvnei Yawan, the children of Yawan. Some of your translations may have Javan, or I think that's how it's pronounced in English. Honestly, I don't know. Javan, maybe. Point is, the yud in Hebrew it's a yud, but in English it comes out as a J because English is Germanic language. The J in English, I kid you not, used to be a Y sound, and the Y was always a vowel. We're not going to get into that because today is not Old English or Middle English or Early Modern English class. So, but if you'd like, I could speak about Old English. I've actually studied it to some extent. And the waw in my pronunciation is a W, but in most English translations it's going to be a V, which is what it is in modern Hebrew. And that happens. Sometimes the sounds that letters make will change over time. That happens, okay? It's not really a big deal. Lost my place. Togarma, okay. Uvnei Yawan, Elisha, with Arshish, Kittim, with Odanim. And the children of Yawan, of Javan, maybe? Javan, Yavin, you know what I mean. Where, lost the spot again, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. Now it's worth noting that Kittim and Dodanim are in the plural. Okay, those names are plural because again we're talking about these are tribal affiliations, I guess is a good way to say it maybe. These are tribes that would develop later on in time, but the people who are being mentioned are the ancestors, or rather the eponymous ancestors, the ancestors that are hypothesized, probably is a good way to say it, to have lived and fathered ultimately all of these civilizations. And verse 5. Me'ele nifredu iye hagoyim be'arsotham ish lishono lemishpachotham bagoyehim. So it says that from these, the islands of the nations were, let's say, peopled. Okay, they were separated in their lands. Ish le'lishono, literally man with his language, with his family in their nations. It means each one with its own language, with its own families. These you could call them clans or tribes even, in their own nations. I would actually probably go so far as to say that nations, that goyim, goyim, in this case would be the tribe proper, whereas by their families would probably refer to clans. Okay, that's just how I would do it if I were the author of Genesis. Obviously, I'm not. Now, one important thing to keep in mind: this particular passage of Genesis, because it predates Abraham, very likely originally, same thing with the stories that have come before. So 9 chapters up until now, were probably originally written down by someone who was not Moses. Okay, let's just go ahead and face that likelihood head on. It's very likely that Moses did not originally write these, but he later edited and compiled them. Edited maybe is the wrong word. Redacted, I guess, is a good way to say it. And compiled them together and put them at the beginning of Genesis, which, for the most part, is an original Israelite composition, if you will. Our very first work of best-selling literature. You got to hand it to the Jews, man. Man, the media, even back then, I guarantee somebody was like, the Jews, they control all the books. I don't know. Maybe somebody did, maybe they did. I don't know. Probably not, though. So, with that being said, there is going to be a lot of similarity in the names here with names that, as they would have been called in other languages. So it's not just a Hebrew language thing, but other languages also come along to other languages from the region, I should say. They come along to really help us to identify who's who, where they were, that sort of thing. So I'm going to put my glasses on because I am going to be relying very heavily on notes, because I don't know if you noticed this, but there are a lot of names. So the very first one we're going to talk about is Gomer, who is almost universally believed to have been the ancestor of the Sumerians. Not Sumerians, but Cimmerians with a C, who were a people that lived to the north of what is now Iran. Magog would be Scythians, almost universally agreed again that these are Scythians who inhabited a larger area to the north, actually, of the Sumerians, which would mean also, coincidentally, north of Iran. Madai. Now, Madai, everybody knows who that is. I say everybody knows. Okay, not everybody does, otherwise I wouldn't tell you. And that's why we're going to move on. I'm just kidding. Madai is the ancestor of the Median people. That would be the Medes, M-E-D-E-S. I believe that's the Greek, actually it's the English form, I believe the Greek form of the word. And that would be ancient Persian people. Okay, these Darius the Mede was one of the leaders of the Medo-Persian Empire. He was a Mede, as the name suggests. Okay. What else do we have here? Oh, and that would have been in northwestern Iran. So these are an Iranian people. I'm using the term Iranian. These are a Proto-Persian people, I guess is a good way to say it, maybe. Yawan. Okay, so Yawan, everybody agrees, and this I mean literally every single person, every single scholar in the field agrees these are the Ionian Greeks. And there's a very, very obvious way that you could tell, because Ion in what's the language? Greek, in Greek, I-O-N, okay, Ion, is literally transliterated into the Hebrew. It's Yud Waw Nun, which is pronounced in modern Israeli Hebrew. It's Yavan. In my pronunciation, it's Yawan. And it probably is worth noting, it's not probably, it's definitely worth noting that waw in the middle there also stands as the vowel sound o. So it may very well be that when this was written originally, that it was intended to be pronounced Eon, or yon, which would be the same as how the Greeks pronounced it. So everybody agrees these are Ionian Greeks. Okay, Tuval. So these are going to be people in Anatolia. These are Anatolia is in modern day Turkey. So these are maybe Turks, but most likely an Indo-European speaking group or tribe, I should say, in what is now Turkey. Because remember, the Turks, they didn't get involved until much later in history, when they literally invaded what is now Turkey. History is great, man. I get to, make Turkish people angry, and just other people as well may be offended by something that's in there. It's not meant to offend. I'm giving a scholarly opinion. Feel free to disagree, especially with this next one. Meshech, okay? Meshech is possibly the Phrygians who were in Anatolia, right? So these would be a tribe in modern-day Turkey. Or they could be Caucasian, ancestors of Caucasian peoples like the Georgians and the Armenians. Okay, matter of fact, the Georgian and Armenian peoples both have traditions that they are descended actually from Meshech, or, and this is where it gets controversial, it's also possible that so the city of Moscow in Russia was named for the Moscow River, but where did the name for Moscow River come from? Well, Meshech is a possible etymology for it. I say that. This is a scholarly opinion that's been around since the medieval age. But it is kind of, I look at it and I'm like, yes, it makes sense, but at the same time, the similarity of Moscow and Meshech, it's, similarity doesn't always mean that there is a relation or any sort of a connection between them. So, moving right along, Tiras is possibly the Thracians, right? Which is in modern-day Turkey, or possibly the Etruscans, okay, who lived in what is now Italy, or it's also been identified with some of the Greek-speaking sea peoples who invaded Egypt and raided Egypt for a while in antiquity. Now there are some who associate it with the city of Troy, which is Ilion in the original Greek. The Trojan horse story, Helen of Troy. Okay, this is the same Troy that we're talking about here, and that's in modern day Turkey. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to Ashkenaz, who is associated with a Scythian tribe, okay, who again were to the north of the Sumerians, who were Gomer, or potentially the Armenians also claim descent from it. Some of them claim descent from him, or the Slavs, okay, that would be Slavic peoples in Europe, well, it's not really northern Europe, but like right at that Europe-Asian border that doesn't really exist. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you look at the old world, right, we say we've got 7 continents. Yeah, man, we got 7 continents. We've got 2 Americas, we've got Africa, Asia, Europe, we have Australia, we have Antarctica. Okay, so let's be real about this, okay? The Americas, it's one landmass, okay? It's one continent. It's a massive continent, but it's a continent, okay? You have Australia, we'll let them keep that, okay? For my Australian audience, you're welcome. Antarctica, nobody lives there permanently, so we'll let them keep that. Okay, and then you've got Africa, Asia, and Europe. Find me the spot on a globe, on a map, on the internet, where they divide physically. You can't. Okay, so it's really one continent. So we'll call it Afro-Eurasia, but this is the Eurasian region, right? The Ural Mountains, that area. Caucasian Mountains, the Ural Mountains, that area. You know, specifically we're talking places like some of the countries in that area are really kind of hard to, because they've changed since I was taught them. Because I remember Czechoslovakia, but I think it's now the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Times change, man. Times. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I remember when the USSR was still around. Ah, the good old days. Ah, the Cold War. Good times, good times. So the Czech region, right? Poland, that area, okay? Or it could potentially be that Ashkenaz is an ancestor of certain Germanic peoples. And I'm just going to let that simmer. Today, in Hebrew, we use the term Ashkenaz to refer to Germany itself. That's not the name, the proper name in modern Hebrew. No, modern Hebrew is much less creative than than ancient Hebrew was. You know, so the modern country of Germany in Hebrew is called Germania. So not fun. I would have chosen the Spanish, Alemania, but, you know, let's not talk about that. Rifath. So Rifath appears to refer to a European people that lived in the Carpathian Mountains, which would make them Slavic, Uralic, you know, whatever you want to call that that group in that region. I'm not saying that they spoke those languages. I'm referring specifically to that region. Okay, it's possibly also ultimately the ancestor of certain Celtic tribes. Okay, that would be mainland Celtic groups, as opposed to Celtic groups in the British Isles. Togramma is, okay, so that one's an interesting one. It could possibly refer to several Turkic tribes, or the Khazars, who were a Caucasian people, meaning they lived in the region of the Caucasus Mountains, or, and again, the Georgians and Armenians did this to themselves. They also claim descent from Togarma. At least some of them do. I don't know if they really do. Okay, let's be fair. It is possible that all these different ancestors, that their descendants could have eventually coalesced into the Georgian and the Armenian peoples, but we don't know. Okay, there is a whole lot that we just don't know. Elisha is almost universally agreed to refer to Alashia on Cyprus. It's a port city, or a port region, I should say, on the island of Cyprus, or potentially Aeolian Greeks. Okay, in either case, it's Greek, because Cyprus, you know, at one point was Greek, and you know. If you know your history of the region, you know. Very interesting history, by the way. History is always interesting to me. I love it. It's great. Good stuff. Good stuff. Tarshish refers to the Tarsians. That's according to Josephus. That's what he calls them. We're talking about the inhabitants of the region surrounding Tarsus, which is in modern-day Turkey. It's in Cilicia. Okay. If you are a Christian, yes, this is the exact same Tarsus that Paul comes from. Okay. We're going to move right on. The Kittim, everybody agrees, it is Cyprus, at least the eastern part of the island of Cyprus. It's also used to refer to other Aegean islands. These are a Greek people, okay? And the Dodanim, just kind of an interesting side note, the Samaritan Pentateuch, that would be the Torah text used by the Samaritans, who are the descendants of the northern tribes of Israel who were not exiled. They, in their version of the text, it doesn't say Dodanim, it says Rodanim. Okay, so, and the reason that there's a difference there is because in the Hebrew and Aramaic alphabets, the R and the D really honestly do look very similar. They're kind of hard to distinguish if it's your first time going at it, so it could be that somewhere along the way a scribal error just crept in. It was really easy for that to happen, okay? Everybody agrees, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone. And do you have any idea how hard it is to get everyone to agree that these are the inhabitants of the island of Rhodes, okay, which is a Greek city, which makes perfect sense, you know, given the fact that these are the descendants of Yawan, right? These are the descendants of the Ionian Greeks. Okay, now they're not necessarily family. Okay, they're not necessarily blood relatives. All right, it could just be referring to you know, this culture spawned this culture, spawned this culture, so on and so forth. And from there, everybody just kind of wandered off and spawned different cultures. And, you know, let me give you an example, okay? Modern day, let's use England. Let's pick on England for a minute. Modern day England is called England. Obviously, it's a part of the United Kingdom, but I'm specifically referring to England. England is called that because it was originally Angle land, the land of the Angle tribe, which is interesting because they only had like one or two minor kingdoms back in the day in England. The Saxons, honestly, the Saxons controlled the majority of what is now England. But you remember from your history, right? The Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, right? So they all invaded England roughly 600 CE. Okay, that's when they displaced the native peoples that lived there, who were, by all accounts, a Celtic people. What was life like there before? I don't know, and neither do you. Nobody does. We just know that originally, from our perspective, as far back as we're aware, the Celtic peoples lived there, and then in came the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, right? So you had these three different Germanic tribes that invaded, and eventually got over their petty squabbling over, you know, minor things like land and rights and things like that. They came together to form the country we now know as England, which is the... Somebody's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it, by golly. It is the dominant country of the United Kingdom. Whew. Okay, so that being said, I think we're done. So today, not very much to talk about. We only went through 5 verses. Next week we're going to get into, I believe it's the descendants of Ham. Why the Torah tells us the order Shem, Ham, and Yafeth, and then talks about the descendants of Yafeth first, then goes to Ham, then goes to Shem. Why it reverses that order, I don't know. I bet the Midrash has something to say about it, but it's been a while since I've looked for that specifically. Um, but yeah, so there's that. Probably because it wants to have Shem closer to talking about Abraham, who was a descendant of Shem. So that's, if I were writing the book, that's how I would write it. Okay, nobody jump on me or anything. Put down your rocks. Okay, at least wait till I finish the chapter, because now I'm devoted to it. Anyway, I'm done. That's all I got. So until next time, shalom.